Hello, everybody. Welcome to my live. Happy Monday. You see the good football games yesterday? Okay, well, anyways, today our subject is going to be on the L1. And I've, of course, done a lot of videos in the past on the L1s, but I'd like to concentrate today on the corporate structure and the investment. Okay, so I'll go over those two parts of the L1 and let you know some more specifics about it and what's required and what's looked at and so forth. And then I will get back to answering your questions, whatever they happen to be. So you can send your questions now. You can send your questions after I'm done with my live or, my spiel on the L1s. Or you can send it at any time, as long as it's immigration related, and I will answer it. Okay, so let's get to it. So, first of all, the L1, for someone, bottom line, for someone who has a business outside the U.S. and they want to open up a branch office in the U.S., okay? And they want to come here on that nice work-type visa and to run the office here. That's the bottom line of an L1. Now, obviously, there's, 1,000 little things that you have to worry about once you're in there. But let me get some more specifics here for you. So, first of all, what is the corporate structure required for the L1? Why is it important? Well, the whole purpose of an L1 to allow someone to come into the U.S. on this type of business visa is so that people can't just come here and, start their own businesses without having the proper L1 requirements and so forth. It's just one of the ways that they allow multinational people who are managers or executives to come. They like that. Okay, immigration likes that. So there has to be a corporate relationship between the foreign company and the U.S. company. Okay? Subsidiary, branch, sister office, whatever it is. Okay? And there's different ways that this can be accomplished. Okay? There's one way that without too much of a problem is fairly easily recognizable. Okay? And what is that? That is when the company in the U.S. is purchased by the foreign company, or vice versa. It's when the company in the U.S. purchases the foreign company. So one of the two companies is a wholly owned subsidiary of the other company. Okay, that's just a nice way of saying one company completely owns the other company, period. Okay, that will meet the L1 corporate structure requirements. Okay, except it's many times not that easy. A lot of times companies, they either don't want to do that, they can't do that, or they're not permitted to do that, okay, for whatever reason. So what's another way that this would work? Okay, another way is that the ownership of both companies is about the same. And I'm saying about because it doesn't have to be exact, but about. So let's say you and your friend and someone else own a company, whatever country, Argentina. And let's say that you come to the U.S. and you want to, one of you wants to come on the L1. So you, your friend, and that third person buy a company here in the U.S. Okay, now when I say it has to be proportionally about the same, let's say you own 50%, your friend owns 20%, and your other friend owns 40%. Okay? Did I do that right? Does that add up to 100%? So coming to the U.S., if more or less it's about the same, let's say instead of 50%, you own 45% here. And let's say, your other friend, instead of owning 60%, own 65, whatever it is. Okay. The numbers can be a little different. So that is how one is not a subsidiary of the other. Okay. One company does not own the other company, but the ownership of both the companies is about the same. Okay? Frankly, when I'm doing an L1, it's easier to prove the subsidiary. You just flat out buy the whole thing, one of the companies, rather than having the ownership be more or less equal, because that's more difficult. But both can be done. So those are the two biggest ways that ownership of the L1 can be shown. Okay? Without this, just go home. Okay? It's not going to happen. Okay? You have to show this in order to even get to all of the next steps of the L1. And again, I've done a lot of videos on a lot of different parts of it, but I find it more effective to concentrate on, a little part here, a little part there. It makes it more enjoyable to listen to, and it makes it more understandable. Okay? That's the fact. Who wants the whole ball of wax in one thing? So that is important to note, because many of you who are interested in this might also have heard of the E2, okay, where you can come invest your own company. You don't have to have a foreign company. You don't have to do all this ownership requirement stuff. But the fact is that with an E2, there's only about 42 countries, I think, that have treaties with the U.S. that can do E2s. Without the treaty, there's no E2. In L1, with an L, there's no such requirement. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're from India. No E2s. Let's say you're a great business person from India, runs your own business, and you want to buy an office in the U.S. or continue operations or whatever it is in the U.S., and you want to get an E2. You can't do it. Period. Doesn't matter how much money you have. But you can do the L1. You can keep operations running in India and buy a company, or do the ownership requirements that I've stated over in the United States. So any country on this planet that you have a business going, that's the initial requirement, but that's a great requirement, because there's nothing saying you have to be from this country or that country, or there has to be a treaty here or a treaty there. None of that matters with the L1, which is why the L1 is very nice. The next question people always ask, and this is the second part of what I want to talk about today, is the investment. I just don't have $1 million. They'll come to me, right? A consult, go, I want to do an L1, but I just don't have $1 million. Well, the first thing I say to them is, you don't need $1 million. That's the EB-5 for the green card. First of all, this is not the green card, okay? It's basically a work permit, but it's a very nice work permit. It's an entrepreneur's work permit. It can lead to the green card with other types of petitions, but you don't need $1 million. In fact, with the E2, I'm talking about the E2 for a minute. Let's say, you come from a country that can do the E2. I'm waiting for with an E2, there specifically has to be an amount of investment that is substantial, and, all kinds of other requirements. The L1, that doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can invest $5 and get away on an L1. But with the L1, the amount of the investment is not near as important as the viability of the amount of money that you're investing. So the question is, will the amount of money that you have put in the U.S. company be sufficient to run the company? That's the bottom line. It's much more realistic, okay, than a lot of other immigration petitions. A lot of other immigration petitions, such as the E2, the amount is clearly a very, very big part. Obviously, with the EB-5, you don't have the $1 million+, you may as well just go home, okay? L1's not necessary. So I've done L1s many times where they've invested $10,000, $20,000, and that was sufficient because the business didn't require that much of a capital investment. Okay? If you have, like, for example, some kind of engineer consulting firm and you use just what's in your head to go consultants and so forth, that doesn't take a lot of capital to do that. And that's why, those type of firms can come and make a branch office and they don't have to have a lot of money invested to do the L1. Okay? Obviously, if you're opening up a big restaurant, let's say you have a restaurant in, wherever it happens to be. Let's say you have a restaurant in Dubai and you want to open up a nice Dubai restaurant in the U.S., you put $10,000 here, that's never going to pass. That's never going to work because they know that you can't open up a nice restaurant with $10,000. Okay? That's how it goes. So the amount is not as important as the reality of what it is you invested and whether it will work or not. Okay? So that, in a nutshell, is what is required for the corporate structure and for the investment for an L1. Okay? And hopefully I made that clear because there's a lot of people who are business people who are stuck where they are because they don't think they qualify for the EB5 or the E2, and they haven't even heard of the L1. Okay? So it's a great place to come for business people. Okay? For entrepreneurs, for investors. All right? All right, so let me scroll back down here and see if we have any questions. Before, let's see. I hope everybody's doing well today. Thank you, Gabby. You just got the #1 gifter badge. Okay, let me scroll down here 1 second. Sometimes, especially in the beginning of the week, we don't have a lot of questions. People just got over a nice weekend. Saw some good football games. They just want to relax and watch the old live. That's okay. Sometimes I have so many questions I can't finish them all. It just depends what day it is. Depends what people feel like asking or not asking. So I'm just going to go down here. I'm scrolling. I have to scroll through all the names just to see. 1 second. Oh, Honey Bunny. Honey Bunny just got the #1 gifter badge. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I appreciate all the gifts, the hearts, the likes. Let's see. Wow. We just got Alexa got the #1 gifter badge. It just keeps changing. It's like you get it and you don't get it for very long, huh? Okay. Well, it doesn't look like, at least at the beginning part, we have many questions. Just a minute. Whoa. Now it just scrolled all the way to the bottom. Is that crazy? I'm scrolling through being so careful, and then it just flicks me right to the bottom. Just a minute. All right. Hey, do you have a recommendation to become an immigration lawyer for undergrad students? Well, first things first, you have to become a lawyer, okay? So you have to be committed to law school itself, okay? And that does take a very considerable amount of commitment. So you get your undergrad degree, and then, of course, you get the law degree. Now, just so you know, your typical law school, I'm not sure where you are. You might be if you're in California, the typical law school there, of the 3 years of law school, 2.5 of those years are basically required courses because they do everything they can so you can pass the bar. You don't pass the bar, you're not a lawyer. Okay, you got to pass the bar. So you can be an immigration lawyer is great, but you got to pass the bar. So study hard, take all the required courses. And like I'm saying, I think in my law school, I had 4 classes, literally 4 classes that were electives. You believe that? Out of all 3 years. And of one of the electives, to even help further on the bar, I took a First Amendment class. So I used one of my electives to also help with the bar. But what you could do, okay, to assist, assuming you really want to become an immigration lawyer, is as you're going through law school, you're probably going to want to intern somewhere for a bit. Intern at an immigration law firm, okay? And don't go there with the expectation to write a brief to the U.S. Supreme Court the day you walk in as an intern. Okay, I've had that in the past. It just amazes me. They don't want to do any of the, what, I guess we can call grunt work. So you have to have an open mind. You have to help from the bottom. You have to see the procedures, how it's done, okay? There'll be a lot of stuff you will do that you really don't care for when you start. But if you want to get the good stuff, you want to eventually really help people. You want to be able to do the briefs to the BIA and argue in front of the judges and make the good arguments to help the people and work the gray area, because that's where us immigration lawyers stay, is the gray area. If it was black or white, they don't need us, right? You need all of the background, and a lot of that background is starting as an intern and doing stuff in the beginning that you might not necessarily like. You might like it. And also, when you get to the points where you do briefs, take the revisions and the comments critically. Don't get insulted by them. Don't get offended. Okay? I mean, when I have people doing briefs for me, I can tear them apart all the time. That's just how it is. They know that. I had one guy, I still to this day can't believe he said this. He was working for me many, many years ago, right? He was a beginning attorney, what we call a green attorney. And I edited some of his stuff. I said, you need to do this and you do that. And he says, I would prefer that you don't edit my stuff. And I said to myself, are you kidding me? Does he think that he is so good, that he's so gifted, that he knows everything under the sun about immigration law, that he doesn't need to be corrected or have comments to make him better? So I just smiled. I wasn't even going to argue or say anything with him at that point, because anyone who is that arrogant and that closed-minded, I didn't want him working for me, okay? Rather, I have people who take the comments when you do the briefs and you do the arguments, and they see where they're weak in it, okay? Even to this day, 30 years after the fact, I discuss with my attorneys some strategies of what we're going to do. And sometimes when you discuss it, they have good ideas too. Everybody has good ideas. It's always better to discuss. So keep an open mind, okay? So did I answer your question? Okay, anyways. All right, let's see. Oh, you're in New York. Well, New York's not an easy state to pass the bar either. Okay, California and New York, without doubt, are the two hardest places to take the bar. Now, don't let that intimidate you, okay? I mean, I'm telling you, I walked out the door and my mom said, I'm never going to pass the bar. Okay, that just made me want to work harder. Okay, so don't let that intimidate you. You just study real hard. All right? So good for you. Go for it. New York has a lot of good immigration cases coming from a lot of parts of the world. So if you keep to it and you study hard and you pass the bar, you'll have a lot of business over there. Okay? All right. You're welcome. All right. I think that more or less answers. Oh, and one more. Oh, you're currently an undergrad student at John Jay Criminal Justice. That's good. There's a big, we call it cremation, okay? Cremation. It's the intersection of criminal law and immigration. And I do a lot of that because it intersects a lot. So if you're doing criminal justice, do a lot on that, because that will lead to a lot of different areas of immigration. I mean, I do legal immigration, illegal immigration, all the stuff. All right. Okay, so that'll do the live for today. I hope everybody enjoyed. Have a good rest of your week. And until the next live.